So, first of all, welcome. You
Thank
got
you.
in this afternoon. Your flight was late, as usual, out of Chicago.
Out of Chicago, yes.
Oh, that was me 2 days ago.
Oh,
3 hours late.
Yeah, our plane, we had to switch planes, so that was...
Oh, fun.
It's always something coming out of Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay, so according to Runner's World, which is the first place I went, you were diagnosed at age 27 in 2003?
Yes, I was 27 years old, 2003 when I was diagnosed. Probably started experiencing symptoms as early as when I was in college, now that I think about it.
Wow.
Yeah, these are things that you don't, hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm coming up on the 10 years of hindsight. Okay. So you were in denial for quite a long time.
I was. First 8 years of my diagnosis, I did absolutely nothing for myself. All I knew was, well, I thought that this was a disease for older people. I didn't think it was possible for anyone in their 20s to get it.
Yeah. So your weight went up. You were walking with a cane by the time you were 36.
Yep.
So what got you off the couch and onto the track?
Well, so as you said, because of less activity, I gained weight. I weighed 240 pounds. I walked with a cane. And then one day, I was walking down the stairs with my infant son. He was about 10 months old, and we fell. We fell down a full flight of stairs. My daughter and my wife witnessed the whole thing. And that was my rock bottom moment. It was either do something about it, or continue living the life that I was living, which is becoming a burden and a safety issue to my family.
So, obviously, what got you onto the track? Got you onto running?
What's interesting is, I saw my brother-in-law doing a lot of runs, and I figured, hey, that looks interesting. So I started just walking around the block, because I couldn't run. I still had to deal with the cane. I started walking around the block and slowly build. One block became two, and then I built confidence, and I dropped my cane, and I started jogging, and then I started running. And then one day I was on a plane, and then just right there in the seat back pocket, just happened to be in my seat, was a Runner's World magazine. And in the magazine was an article about another gentleman who was running a marathon, and he has Parkinson's. So that inspired me to sign up for my first race, my first 5K ever in my life. I've never ran more than a mile at a time up until this point. So that's what got me in. And once I started running, I noticed that I felt better. And so I did more. And the more I did, the better I felt. So I just kept going and going and going. And then next thing you know, I was doing half marathons. And then soon after that, I did my first marathon in 2012.
And how did you get involved with Team Fox?
It was at my very first marathon. When I decided I wanted to run the Chicago Marathon in 2012, there was no way in because it was sold out. Right? Who knew 40,000 people would pay to punish themselves?
You have to qualify too.
Yeah. So the only way in was through charity. And I wanted to find a charity that supported Parkinson's research or Parkinson's anything. And that's where I found the Michael J. Fox Foundation and Team Fox. I called them up. This was about 4 or 5 weeks before the race. I said, I know it's late in the game and you probably don't have a spot, but you guys have a spot for me? And they said, yeah, we have one left.
Oh my gosh.
So, and I always say that to this day, I think that one spot was meant for me.
Yeah. So you've raised more than $100,000 for Team Fox ever since.
So
since
that number's
2012.
That number's been revised. It is now up to 250,000.
Wow.
Oh my God, this is old information.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Amazing.
Yes.
So, what other benefits did you get out of all this exercise besides losing weight and feeling better?
Well, the first thing that I think people should realize is that no matter what you're faced with, let's forget Parkinson's, whatever it is you're faced with, if you make your body healthier, you're gonna feel better, right? And to a certain degree, a certain level. So that's important. That exercise and making your body better is going to help no matter what happens, no matter what you're faced with. But throughout my whole exercise, I guess, career? I don't know if it's career or not, but
Yeah, that's what we call it.
yeah, experience. Thank you. So since 2012, so running has obviously helped me lose weight, but it helps me regain a lot of my balance. I used to fall a lot, which is why I used the cane. But the muscle memory that I built from running helped me, walk with a better gait. Because now I'm picking up my knees instead of dragging my feet. So it helped with the balance, helped with the gait. But then I noticed that the more stuff that I did, I started adding cycling, I started swimming, I started doing triathlons, and then I started adding weight training. Everything that I was doing can be translated to something that helps with my Parkinson's symptoms, right? So one example I like to give is that I would fall a lot. So how do you fall safely and then get back up? Well, think about it. Let's do some burpees, right? It's a controlled fall, and then you force yourself back up. So now if I fall, I can get up, much easily. And I'm not saying everyone should just drop and do burpees.
And
But
not all of us know what it is.
and so that's something that I built, you slowly upon. You start with push-ups, right? Getting yourself up. So every move, every exercise has a purpose in everyday life.
Okay. So none of this had to do with medication causing obsessive compulsive behavior?
No, I have a different story for that.
As long as it works. It's a good addiction.
We're all obsessive compulsive.
So,
it's part of Parkinson's.
The funny thing you mentioned that is because initially my initial medication I was on is Mirapex. So one of the main symptom, one of the side effects of Mirapex is compulsive behavior. But I switched medication and I continued to exercise, so I don't think it was medicine induced.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, I did more after I switched medicine.
What prompted you to try out for American Ninja Warrior?
My daughter, actually. Where does she go now? She's in the back over here. My daughter has always been into obstacle courses. She's been climbing around the house, climbing door jams. She's into all this. And she asked me when she was about 5 or 6 years old if I can take her to these gyms that has obstacles. So I took her, and every year since then she's been bugging me. Dad, can you get on the show? Can you try this? And every year I had an excuse. I have Parkinson's. I don't have the balance. I don't have the upper body strength. But many of you know that Alison Topperwine competed in 2016. Mm-hmm. She was the first person with Parkinson's to compete on the show. And she saw her come on the television, and as soon as they introduced her and said that she had Parkinson's, she turned to me and said, "What's your excuse?" So I had no choice but to submit an application that year, which I was called in for 2017 and then again in 2018. So for this year, obviously, there was a lot of promotional events that I took part in. So I was definitely more involved this year than I was last year. Mm-hmm. But every competitor on the show has to start from scratch when the calendar year turns over. Meaning you're not guaranteed a competitor next year. You have to submit another application. You have to go through the entire qualification process over again. Mm-hmm. So even the people that's been on for 8, 9, 10 years, they have to do it every year. There are 3 competitors left that's been on all 10 seasons.
It's like a full-time job.
For some of them it is, but for me, it's not quite. It would be great, but.
Okay, so your daughter's participating this week in Ninja Warrior, in Junior Ninja Warrior. What is it?
She's here to compete in a obstacle course competition.
How do you feel about that?
I'm excited for her. I hope she's excited. Are you excited?
So you'll be spending the next 2 weeks out in beautiful downtown Burbank.
Yeah, we're gonna be here in the area in the LA area for the next at least week, and then we're gonna head over to Disneyland.
Okay, so what are your hopes, goals, dreams moving forward?
Well,
and how do you see Ninja Warrior and Fox playing a part in these?
Well, the hope is, the goal is always to raise as much awareness as possible. I mean, it's not about me out there. I have the platform because I happen to be doing something that has television coverage, but at the end of the day, it's about getting awareness out there to the general public. I don't think the general public still knows enough about Parkinson's, and there's still a lot of work to do. And if it wasn't me out there, it'd be someone else. So right now, as long as I have the 15 minutes, I'm gonna do it as much as I can. But the goal is really to help the next person find their 15 minutes, so they can continue spreading the message, and continue spreading the awareness, which then would drive donations and generate funds for research.
Okay, what is the one piece of advice you would give someone who is newly diagnosed?
Education. Educate yourself. I didn't educate myself about Parkinson's until almost 8 years later. And it was 8 years wasted where I could have lived a better life. So educate yourself. Don't just go Google and scare yourself, but find reliable resources. Find groups that you can relate to. Find people that you can speak to. And really immerse yourself in the community.
I'm going to open it up. Anybody have questions? Allison.
I just wanted to ask how, like, I'm assuming you were just working out on your own at the beginning when you started walking, running. I don't know if you had a coach or...
Actually, when I first started, I started really exercising because I took part, so after I took the fall with my son, one of the first things I decided to do was to take part in clinical trials, because I'm not smart enough to find a cure and I don't have the money to fund the cure. So I might as well give up my body to find a cure, right? So trial after trial that I signed up for, there's always a physical component to it. Whether it's a questionnaire or a physical therapist, there was always something physically involved with any trial that I took part in. So that's sort of how I got started. And the more physical therapy that I did, I would just take what I was doing in physical therapy and went home and did more on my own. That's how I got started. But ultimately, when I became more specialized in my running and cycling, I did get coaches and people who are familiar with Parkinson's and athletics to help me along the way. It takes time. And one of the things, people reached out to me, especially after my first time on American Ninja Warrior, is like, my husband saw you and he was so inspired. He went out and ran 7 miles, and now today he's in pain. I'm like, well, I'm not saying, I'm not saying that it came overnight, right? It's exactly. The disclaimer here is that I've built this since 2000. My first marathon was 2012. I started running. I took the fall with my son in 2010. So between 2010 and now, in the 8 years, it built step by step, day by day, and that's how it built. It didn't come overnight. So very important and very good comment. People with Parkinson's, we all have sweet tooth, right? I think that's one thing that I noticed that's very common. We all have sweet tooth. It's because you eat sugar releases dopamine. That's why we all go after it. But I had to make a mental change and a lifestyle change to limit the amount of junk food that I take in. Again, it's a lifestyle change. It's a commitment. So I would say that my diet is mostly clean, whole foods, but I indulge in the occasional ice cream, fried chicken, pizza, just everything in moderation.